Welcome to Madame After Midnight. It's a podcast where we talk about life and its many pursuits of sustainable happiness. I'm your host, Madame Donut.
And I'm your co-host, Brad Stark.
A little word of warning. Be careful, everybody. What we talk about could make you hungry.
Or horny. Or both. But don't you worry because the kids are sleeping and we won't tell. Have a seat, hang out with me.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you this week? Oh my God, if I don't see you for a week.
Crazy. It's a crazy week. It's a crazy week that's been going on, and it's nonstop. But that's the way life is. But it's good to be with good friends and full glasses of sake. So that's never bad, right?
So I was very inspired to get sake tonight because of our guest. So we have a special guest tonight who I've been really looking forward to have over on the show. He's a pillar in the community. He's one of the most inspiring chefs we've ever had on island, really, as far as I'm concerned. When I started the business, he's been around and was very, very supportive when I was starting out. So.
Oh, good. So
the honors of introducing our
absolutely.
guests.
I mean, this is great. I mean, it's always great to have great guests with a lot of history with yourself and sort of a community, because that's what this is all about. Mainland cities like New York and Los Angeles have been absolute meccas for making food truck culture such a boom over the last few years. But in Hawaii, the ideal of mobile units serving hot, high-quality, sustainable, nutritious, innovative food hadn't quite caught on until Maui chef Kyle Kawakami got into the game, and it's never been the same. In 2013, Chef Kyle, a native of rural upcountry, brought his gourmet food truck and his style to the world. Maui Fresh Streetery is an island favorite and fast became an incredible food icon on the island. With creations like my favorite, Parmesan truffle fries with pepperoni chips.
Right.
Insane! Mediterranean braised chicken, beer battered fish and chips, and I really want to try this next one. Home style corn chowder. I mean, these are staples of just good home style comfort food that he has put his own spin on and made his own. He's truly a food truck legend. Having grown up in the rural farming community in upcountry Maui, Chef Kyle gained an early appreciation for the bounty of what Kula had to offer. Working in the culinary field throughout high school, Chef Kyle left Maui after graduation and attended the University of Hawaii, earning a Bachelor of Arts degree in zoology.
Zoology.
How about that? I mean, not many guys who can cook know about a lot of animals. I mean, that's incredible.
So do I pet you or do I cook you? Sometimes that's a question.
Ask him that. But Chef Kyle hopes to use his mobile gourmet kitchen to expose diners, local and also those visiting Hawaii for the first time, to the wide variety of cuisines found throughout the world. His palate and his taste level and his ideology and how he approaches food is world class, and that is one of the reasons why we are thrilled to have him here with us tonight on Madam After Midnight.
That's right.
Let me bring him out now.
Yay!
Oh yeah! Come on in.
Uh-oh.
He's here, everybody.
Yay! Oh my God, your fans are here screaming, Chef. Oh my God. Aloha, Chef. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is so exciting. Oh, sorry. I always tell people, I should have a warning that people should come here and if they have epileptic seizure issues. Yes.
We don't want you to die. We don't want to lose you.
Yeah.
If I had known the lights were like this, I would have brought my roller skates.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
I would have roller skated out onto the set.
You would have broken new ground on that.
Next time, we will definitely make sure that that's gonna happen. That's another show. We should totally do a roller skate
show.
slash.
That's what we're on location.
Yeah, that's gonna be when we're on location. That's actually one of the things I'm looking forward to is to do more on location stuff. All right. Calm down a little bit with the lights here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's do it.
Yay! Thank you, Chef, for joining us, and I know you're really, really busy, and I'm so honored that you're here because I was just. It really is my pleasure and my honor. I was looking through your schedule this weekend, and I was just like, holy crap! I don't think we can make it.
It's been busy.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean,
busy is good though.
Yeah, busy is good. It keeps us sort of kind of sane when we're busy.
Most definitely.
I know some of us gets us out of trouble most of the time, so I'm speaking for myself. But that's why I prefer to be busy.
Yeah.
I do have some snacks here, Chef. If you feel like it, just some Parmesan Goucheres, not your Parmesan truffle fries, but
we'll get into those in a bit.
Anyhow, Sorry, I have stuff here all over the place. But I would like another toast, if you don't mind.
Cheers, kampai.
Thanks, Chef. I always say
Tasty.
this is a trick that I feed my guests drinks so that they loosen up and then they tell me secrets they weren't supposed to. I'm just kidding.
Perfect.
But Chef, I wanted to, of course, just go directly into Maui Food Streetery because, as we all know, it's one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic, food truck on Maui for years now. I started around the time you had just started, I believe.
Yeah, we started in 2013.
Okay, yes. Yeah,
Yep.
it's
So we're
about
going
the
on
same
9 years now.
Yeah. So prior to that, you were an instructor.
Yep. So I spent 10 years as a culinary arts instructor at, it was called the Maui Culinary Academy back then. So now it's UH Maui College Culinary Arts Program.
Right.
But yeah. So I spent 10 years there and taught a whole bunch of different classes. The only thing I didn't teach was baking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was not my forte.
That's okay.
Yes, I let the bakers do their magic.
Isn't it funny? I always find it's such a thing for people if they're either a cook, savory chef, or a baker. I always feel
there's a few really talented ones out there that can cross over and do both.
Yeah.
I've always felt like with baking, you have to follow the recipe. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You don't just freestyle and hey, I'm gonna throw a couple extra eggs into the recipe or an extra handful of salt. It just doesn't work that way. So for me, I enjoy baking, but you have to be really disciplined to do it.
What do you like to bake when you go out of your normal?
Jeez, you're gonna put me on the spot.
You got him there.
I don't know if it's really I wouldn't even say it's baking, but I guess something that I've been playing around with was my daughter found the recipe for scallion pancakes. It's like this Chinese kind of street pancake, so it's just flour and lard and green onions and I guess you kind of have to follow. I guess that's somewhat sort of baking in a sense.
Yeah.
I guess it's more of a pancake.
I mean, you're still cooking it still. Well, see, that's the thing though. With baking, you're right. There's the base recipes you have to follow when it comes to your ratio with whether it be yeast or baking powder and baking soda. A half teaspoon will make a huge difference. And
I don't think I was artistic enough to be really good at. You need to be. Not only do you have to be specific in your recipes and be disciplined, but you also have to be very artistic in the finishing product of it. And for me, I don't have that touch that I get too lazy and will just start slapping things on there. I like a squirt bottle and just squirting sauce. Doing cakes was really hard for me because you have to doing fondant and being able to wrap a cake. It takes a delicate hand, and I just didn't. I didn't have. Though I could see myself getting into more bread making. I think bread is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting. Sourdoughs and starters and things like that. But
I find it actually it's interesting with the baking. In France, the boulangeries and patisseries are separate. Here, you go to a bakery and sometimes it usually would have both bread and sweet pastries. But in France, so it's separate now.
Right, so patisserie and boulangerie.
The bread bakers are very different from the pastry, like the dessert makers.
And don't get them confused either, because they'll get
they don't like that.
They don't like that because it's such a different discipline. But one thing that I think differentiates bakers, whether they are into sweet or savory, bread is not necessarily savory, but at least it's neutral, right? Is that when you make croissants versus puff pastry, that's when you're talking about the delicate handle.
Yeah.
If you're working with croissants, because it's a slightly tougher dough than puff pastry, and they're both viennoiserie, they're both layered.
Yep.
When you tend to be like the stronger, like you want to muscle through things, you'd be way better at baking croissants. If you're baking puff pastry, you gotta be more delicate because it's more butter, it's higher in butter.
It's a little bit more finesse.
Finesse, yeah. But I beg to differ, Chef, when you say you're not artistic, because your food's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just
a different type of artistic.
It's just a different type of artistry, and I mean, you can just imagine you're like Pollock versus like Renoir or something.
I guess so.
Like
Okay. All right.
All
right. I'm artistic though.
But when you started Maui Fresh Streetery about 2013,
Yep,
what made you go into food trucks versus a brick and mortar? Because that Maui is a little bit behind when it comes to food truck scene, and you're one of the first who, I think, not that there weren't food trucks before, but you've definitely put it at a level that no one was doing before.
I guess part of the curriculum that we used to teach to the students would entail looking at food innovation and food trends.
Mm-hmm.
And students would always ask, what's the food trend? And I'd always look towards the West Coast. And we were always, in Hawaii specifically, I always noticed that we're about 2 years behind California. And then even to the neighbor islands, so like 2 years to Oahu, and then another year from Oahu to Maui, as far as food trends.
Yeah.
And so I had already started seeing the food truck trends in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
You started seeing restaurant chefs leaving their brick and mortars and doing restaurant quality food out of their food trucks, especially in like LA, San Francisco. You started seeing Kogi Barbecue, Senior Sisig. You started seeing some of the donut trucks. What's very similar to like the donuts that you could get here.
Right.
You're seeing cupcake trucks and really talented chefs that were plying their trade in a mobile unit.
Yeah.
And so I'd already been traveling to San Francisco and eating at a lot of these places.
Yeah.
And so it was always something that I would preach to the kids, like, hey, this is watch the food truck trend because it's coming.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, probably in about 2010, we saw on Oahu the very first appearance of, they called it Eat the Street.
Right.
So I don't know if you remember Eat the Street.
Oh, I remember that.
It was Eat the Street Kaka'ako and Eat the Street Kapolei, and it was a big food truck kind of gathering, live music, very similar to like Fourth Fridays in PK.
Right.
But that was the very first Hawaii-based gatherings, and that was before Maui even. So Maui had local trucks, just mom and pop, greasy spoon, local food.
Yeah.
I think there was I remember down by the harbor, you could go get chow fun from the Lauhi chow fun truck.
They were my neighbors.
Yeah.
When we started at the Kahului Harbor, they were next to us.
And so there were, a few of those, but mostly just local food. And so when I left the college in 2012, 2013, I kind of stepped back and took about 6 months of reflection and just downtime, and kind of had to figure out what I was going to do with myself. And I knew, I had offers to go back to work in brick and mortars, and hotels kind of were calling and asking if I wanted to go back in, and I had already done that prior to teaching.
Right.
I was at the Fairmont Kealani for 4 years, so I had already done the hotel gig, and I knew 60, 70-hour weeks, and no days off for 2-3 weeks straight during the holidays.
Yep.
And that's restaurant life if you're in a hotel kitchen.
Right.
And not that it isn't good, it's just I was
You've done it.
a little older already, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this again.
Yeah.
And so I started looking at what I was preaching and what I was telling the students, and I was like, okay, maybe a food truck. Nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
And I started looking around and doing some searching and calling, and sure enough, a truck popped up on Craigslist. It was somebody on Oahu that was getting out of the game.
Yeah.
And they had built it out in California and shipped it out to Honolulu, and had been doing the Eat the Street circuit. And so I flew up, I called him, and I was like, hey, I'm interested, I'm on Maui, can you hold it for me? And he's like, yeah, I'll hold it over the weekend. And so I flew up, looked at it, we went out to lunch, and we hit it off, and I was like, okay, I'll take it, I'll buy it. Hold it for me, give me a week to get the funds, and I'll be back up next weekend to settle the deal. And sure enough, we bought it, and we branded it up on Oahu, so it was kind of a secret. Nobody knew about it. We left it there for a while. I flew up, I cleaned the truck, just gutted it out, the inside was pretty pristine.
Yeah.
But it was wrapped and labeled as a taco truck. It used to be called Extreme Tacos. And it was a bright yellow truck.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, and so I didn't want to bring it here and then wrap it here, because then word spreads too fast.
Yes.
And so what I wanted was to do it and have it done up there, so I put it on the barge, and so as soon as it got off the barge and it hit Maui, people would be like, whoa, what is this?
Right.
This huge red truck driving around.
It's a big red.
Yeah, big red. And so that's what we did. And so I think it was August of 2013 is when we rolled it out and started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do recall that. And you were doing a lot of events, and we had just started as well at the time. And we started the swap meet in our little
donut mobile.
Yeah, and you've called us a few times, like, hey, there's this event, and you've gotten us gigs when you first started.
Because there was not a lot of people doing it. Not a lot of people doing unique things.
Yeah.
Your donut truck was, I think, the very first of its kind. Nobody had a little mobile unit with your little deep fryer there.
Exactly.
And you were doing like the small little ones. Yeah, you were doing little
donuts.
mini donuts, and I think it was like you just had cinnamon and sugar donuts or plain. That was it, right? I mean,
hardly anybody was doing anything like that. And we had the fourth Friday by the time in fact, that's how I got the trailer. There was this couple who was also getting out of the game, and they were selling. They already had I think they only did it for a month.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I want it. Just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I went and I was like, fine. And I didn't really have money, but I don't know if you remember Chris, who used to be married to Chef Brian at Capiche. And she was with me, and she's like, girl, you gotta get this, I believe in you.
Yeah, it's a dream, right? You look at it and you have this vision of what you can do out of it.
Yeah.
And you go to sleep at night and you're dreaming about it, and you're looking at your little trailer or your little truck, and you're like, wow, what can you do with it? It's kind of like a blank canvas.
Yes.
I mean, that's sort of the name Maui, and then fresh, because we kind of wanted to utilize as much fresh ingredients as possible, or freshly cooked.
Yeah.
And then streetery is just a kind of play on words, so it's like the street and an eatery.
Yeah.
And when you look at the name, it's pretty indescript.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know, like, people always ask, what do you serve? Like, it's not Maui Fresh tacos or Maui Fresh poke bowls, or, I specifically did it that way so I didn't pigeonhole myself into a specific cuisine or a specific food, so I can do whatever I feel like doing.
Yeah.
On any given week, I'll change the menu, like, on the spur of the moment.
That's one of the things I love about your food truck from the get-go is I think that way, I create that way as well.
You know,
with
it's
my
like
food.
if somebody gives you some fruit, some kind of wonderful fruit or an herb, and all of a sudden now you can do a donut out of it, right? And it's like it's a special on the menu.
Yeah, and I love to make food like that. So when I saw you, because you were really, well, no one was doing it. First of all, the quality of the food that you were making and you are making, and also just the fact that you were rotating the menu was really different.
Well, that was kind of a play off of what we did at the college.
Mm-hmm.
So when I used to teach at the college, I was teaching downstairs in the food court, and my outlets that I would teach at, one was called Roll Plate, one was Farm to Table, one was Paniolo Grill, and what I tried to do was make it so it was interesting for the students because they were with me for 7 weeks or 8 weeks out of the semester, is to rotate the menu every week. So it's like it's like different station, different menu, and it's like a lot of the recipes and dishes that we serve kind of came from experimenting for years at the college with students.
That's excellent.
Yeah, and that kept it fresh and kept it exciting for the students. And I thought, and me.
Yeah.
You know, so if you do the same thing over and over, man, I would get so bored. I'd be like, oh, God, really? I gotta do this again? And so, and I thought, if the students were excited about that, then customers should be excited as well. If I'm getting something different.
Yeah.
I mean, we get customers that are like, well, where's that dish that I had when I was visiting on Maui 2 years ago? I'm like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's not here.
Exactly. And I think it's so important too that you set your boundaries from the get-go, that that's how you create. And that's one of the things I tell my own customers as well. It's like, well, you're coming to me because you trust that I can make what I do, well.
Yeah.
And so as an artist, and sometimes I hate saying that about myself, like I'm an artist, because it's not really necessarily what I mean, but as a creative, right? Or when you go to
as an innovator.
As an innovator, and that's what I think you are. So somebody actually made a comment, like, oh, 2 superstars, and I'm just gonna hang out with you. I'm like, yeah, I'm next to him. The super right here. But that's just how we create, and I find that when we set precedents for people and set our boundaries, that's how we create. They actually respect you more, anyways, as a creator. So.
I mean, over time, people get used to that,
Exactly.
and so they, for me, like our customers come back week after week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have repeat customers. Probably 97% are repeat customers.
Yeah.
Maybe 3% are visitors.
Yes.
And so they already are excited about like, oh, what's the next menu going to be like? And if you train them to,
exactly,
it's a matter of getting them. I hate to use the word trained,
yes,
but it is. You're getting them.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting them into. For me, it was through social media, through Instagram and Facebook, where it's. And what's funny is now I have all these older people, senior citizens, and like 70-year-old, 80-year-old people that are like actively on my Instagram sites commenting. Awesome. I'm like, hey, so and so, how's it going? Like, and it's funny. I know they're retired, and they're like every post I make, they're commenting and making, and because you get them conditioned to, hey, if you want to see what I'm making, go on your phone or their computer and take a look at what we're doing. And
yeah, I actually really appreciate that about you, because you are very good at engaging your clientele. Like I see that you're actively communicating what it is that you do, and I know you're really busy, because sometimes I've tried to do that. Like I go live and just say, okay, then I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody right now. But you are so good at that. And I mean, I see you, like, you're still working, but I feel like that's part of what you do, is to engage people and let them know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's fun.
Yeah.
And I've used those platforms for not just putting food photos, but doing some social activism, whether it be, I mean, I try not to do political stuff, but if it's social activism on the island, whether it be, promoting farmers, and so the big thing right now is within the next 2 weeks, and I want to do a shameless plug.
Yes, please.
But we got the return of the Maui Ag Fest coming up.
Yes.
June 4th on Saturday, so not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. Okay. It's been gone for 2 years, and so we're gonna be bringing Big Red down to the War Memorial Stadium for the return of the Maui Ag Fest. Yeah. But I use the social media platforms to do stuff like promote farmers and some funny humorous things and promoting whatever. I mean, it's just keeping people engaged and having a good, positive platform to talk to people about food. My last post was like, I think this weekend I posted something about what one restaurant on Maui would you like to see if you could bring back, or what restaurant did you miss? And we had like 700 comments.
Yeah,
it was insane. It was like people are just going crazy on like just reminiscing. If you pose the question on the platform, and all of a sudden their brain starts clicking, and they're like, "Oh, I remember this restaurant," and then they have this outlet to express themselves and to remember something.
Yeah.
And it's amazing going through the comments and reading all the dishes. Kitadas in Makawao and Golden Jade in Wailuku, which was an old school Chinese restaurant, and all these, it's just fun things. I try to keep the platform fun.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I mean, you are so involved in the community. Like I said, you are a pillar in the community, and you do a lot for the community outside of posting things to promote people. You do this thing, the Aloha tip jar, regularly, and I just think that's a really cool program because people just want to tip you anyways for your service, but the fact that you're giving that back to the community. How do you pick your recipients when you do the Aloha tip jar, and how did you come about with this idea, which is noble and great? So thank you.
So from the very start, we wanted to be connected with the community, and I tried to figure out a way, like how are we gonna show that we're part of Maui, and we didn't want to be a flash in the pan. I didn't want to be seen as like, oh, look at this trendy truck, and they're here 1 month, and then all of a sudden they're gone. And so we looked at our tips, and we said, hey, let's take these tips and figure out a way to get them to, people are happy with our food and they're buying our food, and tips are always something that it's extra. You never expect a tip.
Yeah.
And we looked at it and said, well, you know what? We don't need that. Let's give them back, and let's make people feel like they're connected by helping out other things within the community.
Yeah.
And I think we started from the very start, and the very first tip jar was going to a family. It was one of my sons. My son was in 3rd grade. And it was he had lost he lost a classmate to cancer, and so we said, hey, let's do a fundraiser for their family, and let's generate some funds, and let's just donate the money to their family, and that's how it started. That was the start, and so every month or every couple months, and it's just kind of evolved and snowballed, and we've used it for everything from, I mean, shoot, I can't even think of how many. We've done kids fighting cancer. We've done Maui Food Bank, Maui Farm, Imua Family Services multiple times. There's like so many. It's hard to even. And then when the federal government shut down, we used the tip jar to do meals for federal employees that were working but not getting paid, and we used those to provide meals. And then when COVID hit, we used the same thing. If people left their tips, and we did it. Aloha tip jar kind of morphed into what we called the Kupuna, our Kupuna Meals Initiative, which was feeding our seniors that were socially isolated. And we did it. That one tip jar donation lasted an entire year. Wow. So it lasted from March of 2020 till April of 2021.
Wow.
And during that time, we served over 5,000 meals to seniors, and just through donations of people were donating product, people were donating money to purchase products, and it's been crazy.
Would you say that, this is, listening to that idea and how you sort of put that in motion, would you say that that's the kind of freedom that having, say, like a food truck gives you? I hear you sort of talking about unique connection that you have with seniors through Instagram. That's unheard of. And people obviously come because the food is good, but then they come to see you and they know sort of what your mission statement is. That plays into it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think definitely the food truck is a lot more personal versus a restaurant where the chef may be hidden behind a wall and maybe they'll come out and they'll walk around the kitchen, but a lot of times the chefs are hidden or you're in the back, doing something, and you can come out and say hello once. And I think maybe you're a little different where you can get out here and see your customers. Yeah. But with the food truck, they're right there. They're right in your face.
I still feel
they're
like a food truck. Actually.
Yeah. They see you cooking. They see you finishing their food. I can joke around. I know them all by name, and it's like and.
Yeah. I did this job a long time ago, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Tommy Bahama. Mm-hmm. They bought a food truck and they brought it out, and I've forgotten what the gentleman's name is, the chef and his wife, but it was their idea. They pitched it. They'd been working.
It was a beautiful truck.
Man, it was incrable.
I have no idea what happened to it.
That was the thing. I think they just. Yeah.
I think they had it, and then they parked it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was parked at Whaley's Village.
Yes.
And then it was there for a bit, and then it was
gone. And I just remember one of the things that the chef, gosh, I can't remember what his name was, but he and his wife were really they were wonderful. But he was saying, he was just like, I've been back in the kitchen and I've lost that connection with the people. And every now and then, I'll come out and I'll see, a table or something like that. But he's like, this is so different just because I get to interact with people and just sort of like hearing your stories about it. I mean, it's true.
I mean, I think the food truck has always been the vehicle for chefs to get away from corporate connection, So I kind of make jabs at when I see food trucks that are like corporate sponsored. It's like, that's, all you're doing is shipping the food from a commissary kitchen into the truck, and then, they're just kind of riding the trend of the food truck versus actually, chef that, or not, it doesn't even have to be a chef. Right? I mean, it could be so-and-so off the street that has a family recipe that really thinks it's good and wants to give it a try. That has always been sort of that dream of doing something in food service at a low cost initial startup.
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about because there are quite a few food trucks now. There was like, oh, where are these people from? Or never heard from them before, but they're literally a chain.
Oh, yeah.
A chain of food trucks, and I didn't know that was going on until I noticed a few that I thought the food was very generic and this and that, and I was like, oh.
It's exploded within the last year.
Yeah.
Man,
oh my gosh!
Especially because of COVID and the restrictions. People not being able to eat inside. I can't even keep up. I think when I started in 2013, I counted, and there was, I want to say 13 on island.
Wow.
With the majority of them being in Hana.
Right.
So there was a bunch. There was a few in Nahiku, and there was a few guys doing stuff by the harbor. I think there was one guy that's doing Japanese food in Lahaina. And then there was their Jaws, I think tacos, and there was Chris at Shark Pit out in
That's right.
That's right.
And so you could really count the trucks, on two hands.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think last I heard pre-COVID, the number was 200 plus, and now it's got to be close to like 400-500 trucks on it.
More than double.
And then also just like the areas where they are just
those pods now are kind of being the thing.
Yeah.
And so people just find the spot and just plant roots, and then
exactly.
One of the things I don't know, I didn't ever really post up in a pod, but I find one of the things I had a problem with those is that the rent is expensive. So you got this truck so that you can have a low cost, food service kind of outlet, and then you go and then they're renting.
Now you're like a restaurant.
You're like a restaurant. So whatever, we got to work with what we got going for us. But I thought that on Maui it was. Because when we started, it was the same thing. Like, you can't just post up anywhere.
Yeah, so you can't go to the beach.
Yeah. We thought there's a lot of people who got into food trucks thinking that they could do that. Yep. And then we get the food truck, and apparently we're not actually as mobile as we
so I've noticed within the last probably 6 months, when people call to inquire about wanting to do like food truck events, they're like, oh, if you can, we're so busy, like we book up some weekends, and they're like, can you recommend anybody? And it's like, now I have a hard time finding anybody because nobody moves their trucks. Everybody's planted, and nobody. So like, I think I'm one of the few out there. I know there's a handful of them, but within Central Maui that actually drives a truck. It's so true. Yeah, it's no longer a food truck. It's just sort of a food pod trailer.
I see that a lot.
And it's okay. I mean, that's just the evolution of it. That's what, if you look at areas like Portland had a huge food truck movement, and that's the success they had. But again, a little different than Maui, because Portland was like state sponsored, so like the state would find these areas and provide low cost facilities for the food trucks to set up in certain neighborhoods to kind of build community. And so it's not like there's an independent person renting at top dollar. It was run by the city of Portland was running these pods, and so you could apply. And every year, I think you'd have to put in your or every few years, you put in your application, if I'm not mistaken, and you bid to get a spot in these pods, and that's interesting.
Yeah, here it's all private, and the rent's so expensive, it gets ridiculous. But, well, speaking of that growth, what are probably the major lessons that you learned that you can share with people that's just starting out or we're thinking about it?
Don't do it.
I always say that too about my work, and then people say, "Oh my gosh, you just followed your passion." I was like, "Don't do it. Don't do it."
Passion is overrated.
Yes, and it's so true. And we talked about this before. Passion is very, very important, but you have to know that you can back it up with hard work and the resilience. Because when you're passionate about something, you go all in, and it's so easy to get burned out if you don't have the backbone for it.
I think the biggest thing I could tell people is do your research.
Yeah.
Take some time. Don't just think that, hey, this is a great thing. Like, look at, where am I going to park?
Yeah.
What is my demographic? Who am I selling to? Like, is the clientele base that I'm selling going to purchase the product that I'm I'm vending?
Yeah.
And even for me, I still run into that. I still run into that issue with my changing menu.
Right.
I'll do one of my favorite cuisines that I love to cook and I like to play with is like Indian food.
Yeah.
But it is a no-sell here in Central Maui.
Yeah, I remember you posting something about that because you put that on the menu.
It's a little too exotic, and it's a little bit too. For me as a chef, I love to go out and eat other cuisines. Whenever I go like to big cities, like I'll search out certain cuisines. Like one that I always search out is Ethiopian.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I was just talking to somebody about that.
Oh my God.
I
love Ethiopian.
Yeah.
Because I found some local honey, and somebody's like, "Oh, make meat." Yeah. Oh, we talked about that actually. I remember you getting like
I bought and I was playing with injera. And then I looked at it.
You can make sourdough.
Starter, kind of, yeah.
And you had
but things like that. It's something that we like, but because you like it doesn't mean it's going to sell.
And it's going to sell.
And I hate to say but in like Central Maui, rice sells.
It does.
Right?
Yes.
Rice sells. If you don't have something with rice on your menu, it's sometimes it's a tough sell.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So do your research. That's the big thing. Get out there and sit. Before we opened it, I sat at places, and I sat like literally like I'd park my car and I'd sit there and I'd watch the flow of traffic and watch how easy is it to turn into a place and how where's the parking and where is there flow here. And then I actually went out and walked to businesses and said, I remember when I was first initially going into Wailuku town, I walked to the federal and state buildings and talked to people I knew in the offices and said, hey, are you guys interested? What do you guys do for lunch? Is everybody bringing home lunch? Is everybody like, how much time do you have? What is your lunch time? You know, you open up at the wrong time and you miss your client base. And so those are all factors that you got to take into consideration.
Well, this really sort of, my question is, I'm sure students love being in your class just because, you know, outside of like your consummate skill, chef, you know how to cook all these different variety of things. They can walk away with that kind of knowledge. But what you're talking about right now, is there a portion of your class that deals with sort of like that idea thinking of what's traffic flow like if I'm going to work?
We tried to put it in. I used to, I mean, not so much in detail as what I'm talking about, but like the biggest thing is like we used to talk about it is we used to refer to it as an A1 location. You know, like is it an A1 location? Meaning, is it a top location? Do you have easy in and out traffic from both directions? Do you have ample parking? Because as soon as you have someplace that's too difficult to get into, then it's tough. Yeah. Super tough. And being in like central Maui, I'm sure you can, you know, attest to that with all the construction that was
my God.
Wasn't that horrendous?
It killed me when I started my soup and toast kitchen during the week, and it was really good in the beginning. And then I started the patisserie, and then the construction went crazy and it went on for months, and I never recovered from it.
Yeah. So parking. You know, if there's no place to park, customers aren't going to come and eat. They're not going to like walk up, 5-6 blocks to try to get there.
Yeah. How's it with your location now? Because when I think of it, it's almost out of the way, but you're also near other kind of offices, and you're close to the hospital if they want to drive.
Yeah. So right now we're only doing Friday evenings. So we're at Friday evenings at that Ultimate Air Trampoline Park, which is in the new Maui Lani commercial area. Yeah. And we've kind of changed it. So like we, because of COVID, we kind of morphed everything, and it's no longer like walk up. So people don't even have to get out of their car. It's like a drive through.
Oh, wow.
And so we have, the menu is even changed. So during the peak of COVID, everything was packed and chilled. So it's like meal preps. Yeah. So it's our same food, but not quite, like we'd had to be careful of some things that wouldn't, like we didn't want to do fish and chips because you can't microwave fish and chips and have the same quality. Yeah. So it was a splattering of our menu items that were popular, that held well, that could reheat well, and everything was chilled. And people never had to leave their car. They stayed in their car. They felt safe. We'd run their credit card. We'd bag their food. We'd put it on the table. They'd get out of their car. And there was zero contact. Yeah. And so now we're just slowly starting to get back into right now it's kind of a hybrid. So each week we're kind of doing a few more hot items that we can turn and burn real quick, along with some chilled items for people that don't want to wait for a hot item, but they still stay in their car. Yeah. And so we just line the cars and they snake around the block, and sometimes there's 30, 40, 50 cars when we open waiting, and they just line up and wait for their food, and they sit in the comfort of their car with the AC, listening to the radio. We have some that just
that's awesome.
I have regulars that are there.
Put on like a drive-in movie kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a regular that's there. We don't open till 5, and she's there at 2:30.
Oh my gosh!
Oh man,
she holds
hardcore.
She holds the front of the line. She finishes work at her other job. She parks, takes a nap, does Sudoku or whatever, and just hangs out. And just because she can get first crack, she's first in, first out. Yeah. Has the full menu, so nothing is sold out when she's there. She's actually the first 3 customers every week are the exact same. Yeah. I know exactly who's in line.
Yeah. That is so cool, actually. And that is part of the community building that you have, doing what you do. And like you said, you have just direct contact.
Well, we actually pre-COVID, we started this. We'd have these huge lines that would actually line up. People park their cars and line up. Yeah. And we used to run this contest. It wasn't every single week, but it was. I could pop it open when I wanted to, or it could be at a special event. And so we had these Maui Fresh Streetery T-shirts just like this, but on the back it had team first in line. And if we decided to run it, and you were first in line, you got a shirt. And once you were team first in line, you represented it. And so if you say you were our team first in line, so I had a guy that was team first in line. We used to call him the king. His name was Tommy, and he would wear his shirt, and he made sure. So if he was first in line, nobody else would get it. So he had exclusive rights to that shirt for months, where nobody else could beat him. So if you want, and so finally somebody beat him because they came like 4 hours before him, just to beat him to get their shirt.
That's so awesome.
So it's like being the mayor of like Yelp or whatever. They make you like a governor or something like that, depending on how many places you go to and you review. That's awesome.
I'm sorry.
You just make it fun for them. You know, you make it like something exciting. It's like
Chef, give me your. This way it's small so that we can like.
Oh yeah. Chat and talk.
Chat and talk, but you know we're being good.
Yeah.
Trust me, I haven't see we still have a whole bottle practically.
But that's just another great sort of thing about having a smaller operation where people can taste the love that you're putting like into everything, and once you get that community coming in, they love to come back, and they're just like, hey man, what?
Yeah.
It's front of the line. What?
Your own sports team, you know, pretty much. It sounds so cool.
Yeah. So we're gonna bring that back. Probably this summer. I have some ideas. It's not gonna be hashtag team. Cheers.
Oh yeah, cheers. Bye.
It's not gonna be.
Oh Jesus Christ! Yeah, just flavoring on that.
That's all right.
As long as it stays on the computer.
It probably won't be hashtag team first in line, but I have an idea of if something on the lines of if you can read this, you ain't first in line.
Right? Okay, so I'm just gonna go there because this is the naughty podcast. There is a thing about there's a PNT that I've always wanted to own that it said that if you can read this, you're very, very close, but it will be in Braille.
That's why she dates the blind. You put up the least amount of struggle there, Chef. You see her walking down the street with a cane. It's not real.
So, Chef, you're really, really busy. How do you balance your work schedule and your Ohana? Because we talk about sustainability a lot. I always go there. You know, we talk about sustainability with their food, where we get our ingredients from. But you're very busy. You're married with kids that are growing so fast. Oh my God, your sous chef. Hello, he was tiny.
He was a little guy. He was a little guy when we first started. You know, he was in there. I just try to tie them into what I do. You know, like bring them on and get them involved, and I'm blessed because that's the benefit of a small business and a food truck. You know, it's like if I was corporate, you can't really take your kids into the hotel kitchen. You know, I mean, not except on maybe bring your kids to work day.
Yeah.
You know,
but when is that? Once a year?
But you know, like I put in work, and it's free labor.
He's learning a lot. I mean, it's amazing the kind of food he's been creating himself. And I bumped into you, I think, around COVID times when you were fishing.
Yeah, that's COVID.
That's awesome.
There were silver linings in the whole COVID thing, and it was spending more time with family and appreciating what you have here versus what you might not need.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's hard to talk about the really positive things about it, but it is so true that I think a lot of us who tend to work so hard, we get buried into work and that grinds, and we're proud of it, especially because for the longest
That's restaurant people.
It's restaurant people.
Restaurant people are proud of it. It's so weird.
Overworking, and being yelled at, and being, and that's like, oh, you're tough. You can do this.
How many hours a day can you grind without a day off?
Exactly.
How many covers can you do?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And then the whole what's that? I'm so not in the space anymore. But when what did you call it? Not hammer it. No, that's another term. When they bang it out.
Yeah.
That was a term I kind of did not like forever, because I felt like banging it out is just such a positive thing that you just bang out as many dishes as you can, and that's like something you have to be proud of, instead of how about integrity for each dish, that you really put in the time and the love, because when you're banging it out, you just cannot put in the details that I think would make a special dish that really connects with the person that you're going to be feeding that plate to.
And
it's disconnected.
that's, I mean, you guys, you both have been sort of like in the culinary industry for so long. Is that a mindset? That, I mean, because it sounds like make money, make as much as you can, folks coming in, not really sort of looking to kind of like make that connection. I mean, what would you say, Chef?
I think it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're a culinarian and you're starting off in somebody else's kitchen, well, I mean, first and foremost, it's a business.
Yeah.
And the business is there to make money.
Yeah.
We're just fortunate, the two of us, that we have a business where we can put our artistic flair into and our love and our I hate to be hokey and soul into our food, but it is. And but for other people, you know, if you're getting into, you're a young cook starting off and you're working at, you know, so and so fish house or whatever, and you're doing 500, 600, 700 covers a night. That's the business. That's what you do. You know, you're just a machine. You're a clog, and you're. I used to warn students, like, get ready, because it's not Food Network. It's not what you see. You're gonna be burnt. You're gonna be cut. You're gonna get yelled at. You're gonna get screamed at, and it's gonna be tough. And there's gonna be times where you're just like, screw this. I'm done with this. You know,
and
it's like because it's that's why do you think you see so many chefs with high alcoholism and high drug use, and you know, because it's the lifestyle. It's like you work till 11 o'clock, and I mean, I'm guilty of it. You know, we used to work at hotels, or through college I was cooking in Waikiki, and you're done at 11, and you've had a busy night, and you're just high on adrenaline. You know, it's just you're running at a high level, especially at busy restaurants. Like you're cranking. It takes you hours to come down. And at that time of night, what are you doing? You're decompressing with other cooks and chefs, and you're grabbing some food because you don't want to eat your own cooking, and you're drinking, and you know, it's 11 o'clock turns to 12, turns to 2, and all of a sudden you're going to sleep at 3, and it's like it's a weird lifestyle.
I live that. I'm guilty of that too. I mean, it was so funny because a couple of weeks ago, I have an old coworker at a restaurant that I was actually the executive chef at, and he used to call me the chef no, because people would request something. I said no. I was like, "Do you want to meet you?" No. Like,
that's a T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Chef no.
It's so funny. I actually still have my my notebook that he made a label that said no with like exclamation points. I just put it in everything that I own. But when I was working with him, I think it was kind of interesting and refreshing for him to see me now, because when he knew me, I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic, but I drank all of the scotch.
There you go.
Like, it was because it was a restaurant / nightclub, and so the scotch didn't really sell as the ones I cannot reach.
Right.
You know, it's mostly like young people who just want to get drunk on vodka and something colorful,
tequila,
drink, tequila and beer.
Tequila and Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly. And me, I'm like, no, I want my whiskey. And it was so funny because nobody drank it, and they would run out of that. You know, the bottle. They still always had to replace it because I would start screaming in the kitchen. That's when I was like. Some people don't believe this now, but I was a screamer. And I'd be screaming, and he was a floor manager at the restaurant, and he'd see me screaming right away.
Here's your
Scotch. And
calm down,
calm down. But it's so semi-messed up because I didn't think about how much it was really affecting the rest of my week. You know, prior to getting that job, I worked out. I used to compete in Olympic lifting. I was healthier. I was actually majored in exercise science and, you know, nutrition and stuff. And then before you know it, I'm this like, I gained weight. I mean, nothing too crazy, but it was just like, it wasn't really who I was anymore. But I was proud of it, because coming into the business, especially if you're a girl in our time,
you have to be hard.
And there were very few women in the kitchen at the time. So you're going to get picked on. Right? So, especially if you're slightly cute because they will pick on you. They will.
And the women that were in the kitchen were badasses.
Yeah.
Because they proved themselves. It's
exactly.
like, oh, don't mess with that chef.
Yeah.
Like, you
I
should
had
tear
to
your
go
head off.
through that. It was a learning lesson.
Initiation by fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I needed to go through that, and before you know it, I was the one making the boys cry.
Yeah.
And looking back, it's like I don't want to be that person. However, that's
the lifestyle.
That's what happened. So
Maui is not, at least Maui, we're pretty rural in a sense. So it's like, you get off work at 11. You don't have a lot of choices.
And not, you can't get much
now, especially now, you got Jack in the Box and Taco Bell, and that's about it. Maybe you're kicking back a 6-pack of Heineken on the back of your car.
But
there's not. That's it. But if you're in any big
major
city, if you're in New York, San Francisco, LA,
Yeah.
the city doesn't sleep. I cooked in Honolulu in Waikiki.
Yeah.
And the city doesn't sleep. 11 o'clock, it's just starting. It's like,
I
okay,
know.
where are we going?
Here we go.
It's like, you had your spots. Like, okay, where are we going
There's a lot
tonight?
of
Korean restaurant. It's like,
the
there
food
was-
is really
there's
good.
Korean restaurants that didn't open till 2.
Yeah.
They opened till 2, and they service the bar girls and
Yes.
the chefs and the waiters that were coming off shift.
Yeah.
Cheap drinks, good food, salty, hot, spicy.
It's
like,
perfect.
it-
It fed that kind of lifestyle. So, anyways, we talked about the Food Network.
Yes,
So-
I was going to sort of
Yeah.
to loop back to that.
Yes, exactly.
Now, was it a Food Network show that you were on specifically, or was it?
There's a
just
Diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Yeah, and you
with
often,
Guy?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we've been on a bunch of different. We did a few when we first started off. We did a couple shows with PBS, and then we did a lot of local stuff, with local programming. And I think the very first call from the Food Network was in 2000, and it's pretty recent. I want to say 2017 or 2018 was the first outreach from them, and so they reached out and said, "Hey, we're coming to Maui. We did some research. Would you be up for, doing a segment?"
Yeah.
And so we said, "Sure, why not?" And we did that. So that was our first one, and it hit off real well. And this guy was pretty stoked about the food. It's something different. We fed him dishes that he had never tried before.
especially for the
Yeah.
diners.
Yeah.
So we did one of our dishes was okonomiyaki, which is like this Japanese
Which is
street
one of my
pancake.
favorites that you make, actually.
Yeah, and then we did this other dish, which is a play off of a Burmese dish called lafet tok. Lafet tok is in Burma, it's their national dish. It's a fermented green tea salad.
Yeah,
Oh.
I love that.
It's kind of like green papaya salad, but they use fermented green tea leaves.
Yes.
But you can't get fermented green tea leaves because Burma has a huge, it's almost like Cuba where you can't get into the country.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So unless
Sure.
you have a connection bringing the tea leaves out,
Wow.
you can't get it. So I used to go to this Burmese restaurant in Rockridge, in Northern California, near Berkeley,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
I used to eat at this Burmese salad. That was my thing. That I'd do the chef, and I'd go there, and that's what I'd order. I'd order one order to eat there, one order to go, and when I'd fly home with like 3 or 4 orders.
Smart.
And so I wanted to recreate that. So we recreated this dish, but instead of, if you eat fermented green tea leaves, it has a kind of if you can imagine opening up a tea bag, it has a very tannic flavor where it makes your mouth pucker a little and it has a little bit of a bite to it.
Yeah.
And I found that same little bit of tannins in pahole ferns.
Oh, okay.
And it's not quite the same, but you get that flavor at least. And so we did all the same dressing. It's like fish sauce, lime juice, fish sauce and lime, pretty much just as fish sauce and lime juice. And the cool thing about Burmese salad is that when it comes, everything is compartmentalized. So it's like green tea is in the middle, and then there's fava beans and sesame seeds and dried shrimp and tomatoes and jalapenos and onion and peanuts and everything's in its own little pile, and they pour the dressing in. The server mixes it for you at the table.
Yeah.
And so we did this play off of lafet tok, which is but using pahole fern.
Yeah.
And he had never eaten pahole fern. And so it kind of blew him out of the water. He's like, whoa, that's wild.
I love that you made it the local dish.
I mean,
love that
Yeah,
salad.
local people, if you eat pahole fern, it's always tomato, onion,
Right.
oyster sauce, dried shrimp, and that was it. And I was like, well, why can't we do something different with it?
Absolutely.
And so they called again, and they wanted let's see, we've been on 1, 2, maybe 4 or 5 times.
That's what I was like
Yeah.
saying. You're like
Yeah.
a mainstay.
So we've done Triple D, and then during COVID, he couldn't go out to restaurants, so they did a Triple D takeout edition where you actually Skype into him and you send a box of food.
Yeah.
And they prepare it at their restaurant or
wow.
at his ranch. And it's like 4 different chefs. And so we did that with him, and we won like best dish for that episode because they picked up like a best dish.
Yeah.
For that one, we did our we call it Soul Bowl, play on words.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not Soul SOUL, but SEOUL. So it's a Korean pork belly bowl.
Yeah.
So we did that for him, and then he flew back out, and we did Triple D Nation, which is where he revisits Triple D spots. And so we did our hamachi soba salad for him, and then we did a luau for him, where it was called Guy's Family Adventure, and so he came out with his whole family and toured Hawaii and wanted to see like the behind the scenes, and so we did this kind of authentic style luau.
Nice.
In Waikapu at Nohoana Farms. That was kind of cool.
That's so awesome.
And he seems like he's just like game as a bagel. He'll do anything. He'll go out there like on the boats with the guys.
His
It's
energy
through
is
the roof, right?
amazing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how he does it because his schedule is insane. He will be out on the boat fishing, then he'll come in and then take a shower and roll right into filming and not miss a beat.
Oh, I think that's what made him so successful as a TV chef personality is because he has that.
Yeah, the charisma, and what you see on air is the energy he carries even off air. Like it's pretty amazing. And it's no wonder he's literally become the face of Food Network.
Right.
He is the Food Network.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's so true.
He's done really well. God, I'm trying to think of a show. God, Chef, I'm been sitting here like all night, and I'm wondering. There was a show called Movable Feast, and I forget what the gentleman's name was.
Mm-hmm. That was that's the very first thing we filmed, and that was
I knew you from somewhere.
Movable Feast with Chef Pete Evans.
I was the only black guy there. I knew you from somewhere. Yeah. I was there, and we shot that over there on the
farms as well.
Oh my God, beautiful. And they actually, what I really loved about that show and about how that was filmed was they actually took the time to learn. Pete and his crew actually got to learn what the importance of eating ancestral foods and actually seeing how poi was made and that whole story.
That was a very cool.
God, that was incredible.
Series.
It really was.
Yeah.
And didn't you make some kind of like a poi pancake?
We did.
I still have those pictures, and every time I look at, I knew I was in love with you, Kyle. I just didn't remember.
Yeah. So what we did was we wanted to do something different, because everybody's eating poi, like fish and poi.
Right.
And so what we did was we took pa'iai, which is the raw form of poi when it's still thick, and we tightened it up with a little bit of cornstarch, so it was even tighter, and we fried it, so it was kind of like a crispy pancake, and then we topped it with poisson cru. So we did a Tahitian style marinated tuna with vegetable, with peppers and onions and spicy jalapenos and coconut milk and lime juice, of course.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
and it tasted good because we got to eat not leftovers. There were no leftovers, but we got to eat extra.
This episode is making me really, really hungry.
Yeah, that was the Movable Feast with Pete Evans.
So great. That was it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun to be on and watch you work.
Yeah.
Really incredible.
That was our very first kind of major kind of broadcast, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So Chef, I want to go to recent. I mean, it's just the season of graduation recently, right? So I mean, I'm dealing with that with all of the orders for graduation, and recently you were the guest speaker at the Maui Culinary Academy. Now, wait, sorry.
Well, it's actually UHMC.
UHMC.
So it was the overall college.
Right.
Yeah.
So for the whole school that you spoke, right?
Yes.
And 20 years ago is when you graduated from from the program.
2002.
And you said something about you you spoke and you talked about your mentor, Chef Pang, who passed recently, and that's one of the reasons why I also reached out to you, because to me it was so timely, because I wanted to talk about mentorship and how important it is. You know, I mean, you are amazing at what you do. I was reading recently, I forget who it was who said this, but basically 3 phases that we go through as people, hopefully most of us. One, to go through the first phase would be mastery, right? You learn your craft,
Yep.
you become really good at it, and then you go into this next phase, which you teach and you know, you mentor basically. And then usually either while you're mentoring or after mentoring, you make an impact. And I want you to talk about that, because I feel like you're doing all of that kind of simultaneously. But I was touched by the fact that you spoke dearly of Chef Pang and how he was a mentor to you. And, you know, you are, I mean, in many ways, a lot of us stand on our predecessors' shoulders.
Right, we do, most definitely, especially in our craft.
Yes.
You know, we're kind of like, especially in kitchens, going into a kitchen as like a big, droopy-eyed, you know, culinary student, you're kind of like that baby chick that is easily, what do they call it, impressed upon,
Right,
or you get that impression or whatever it is.
Kind of like being like an
Impressionable.
incubator.
Yeah, you're impressionable, where
Yeah.
it's like you. So I think
Still a sponge.
So when they're early on, like I always felt like, especially when I went back and taught, when I left, after I graduated, not when I graduated, actually I take that back, while I was still a student, I'm going to back up a little. So I guess the backstory is, while I was a student, I had an opportunity in my first semester to go and volunteer at a food event, and it was the Noble Chef, which is the big food fundraiser for the school, the culinary school, and it was always at the Fairmont, and Chef Pang was a huge supporter of it. And so I went, they asked for volunteers, and you know, people would volunteer, I don't want to get paid, and it wasn't paid, it was free, so I was like, I'll volunteer. And so I went there, and it was on like a Wednesday, and I went there Wednesday after school, and I stayed there for like 6 hours. I think we were like prepping potatoes, and you know, it's grunt work. And then by Thursday, I got to, he's like, come back tomorrow. I was like, okay. I went back the next day and started doing something a little bit more, and then the event was on like a Saturday, and by Saturday night, he offered me a job.
Oh wow!
And he's like, hey, do you want to cook? I want you on my staff. And I was like, well, I'm only a first semester student, and I gotta finish the program. Like, I don't want to leave and just abandon school to cook.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, he is a big proponent of education. So he's like, you work when you can work, and I'd like you to work on the weekends if you can, because you know you don't have school. Friday night, Saturday night is cool, and if there's any other days where you're free, you can work during the week as well. And so I spent 4 years with him, and he was an incredible chef. Like that, I think that impression impressed upon me what I carried into teaching, and you know, and that's, you know, going fast forwarding 20 years to speaking at the commencement for the graduating students of 2022. That's the, you know, he was supposed to be the commencement speaker.
Yeah.
He was scheduled like to be the speaker, and he literally passed away, you know, a week before the graduation. Wow. And so the school reached out and said, hey, can you fill in his shoes?
That's a lot.
And, yeah, like, you were a teacher, you were a pupil under him, you know, can you do it? Like, and I was like, no, he just passed away. Like, I mean, and we want to keep it upbeat, so we don't want it to be like a memorial.
Exactly.
And I was like, well, I need to sleep on this. And there was a few, you know, restless nights before I'm like, should I do this? Can I do this? Like, how do I honor him in the way he needs to be honored, but at the same time celebrate these students in their achievement? And it's not, and it would have been a lot easier if it was just culinary students,
Right.
because I could have spoke on behalf. But we'd have nursing students and undergraduate, you know, general liberal arts and automotive tech and Hawaiian studies. So I can't just be like, hey, this is Chef Pang, and this is how great he was, and you know, and so I slept on it, and figured, hey, ultimately the speech revolved around 5 points that these students could take away in life now that they were graduates. And I folded in things that he taught me.
Yeah.
The first one was being a mentor. I'm sorry. The first one was finding a mentor. Because right when I graduated, I had that mentor in him. And finding that mentor that you can go to in good times, in bad times, in hard times, to kind of lead your path is crucial. Yeah. So that was the first point, was finding somebody that you want to emulate and that you can see yourself becoming. Like, hey, maybe not necessarily footstep by footstep, but like, hey, I want to be this guy. Chef Pang was so active in the community, and he was volunteering, and he supported local farmers, and it's huge with the Farm Bureau, and that's what
he always was before it was a trend.
Before it was a trend, he was the one that was doing it, and that's kind of what I designed my fresh treatery off of. I think the second, what did I talk about? Finding a mentor. This might be a little out of order. It was, sorry, you're going to throw me off here. Finding a mentor, one was becoming a teacher. So at some point in life, teaching, not necessarily becoming a teacher, but going back to your high school or to your college classes and checking in with your former teachers and talking to students about your life path. That was one. Another one was giving back to your community.
Oh, excellent.
So helping, volunteering in your community, making an impact so that your community is a better place than you were there.
Yeah.
That's 3. It was just last week too, and
it's all the sake we're drinking.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank here. Let's see. Finding a mentor, improving the community, being an educator. I'm going to draw a complete blank.
It's okay. And if you don't,
we'll talk about some other things that it's gonna kill me now not to be able to remember all.
But the great thing is that you sort of encapsulated kind of like the common denominator of what it takes to be a good person. In society, and you were able to sort of, oh man, I can't just make it about cooking. Well, let me talk about who this man was in life.
Yeah, so I folded in some of those things. Like I talked about how he was a mentor.
Exactly.
And being an educator, like when I left his kitchen to go back to become a teacher, he pulled me on the side and said, hey, it's a big responsibility because now you're not just a chef or a cook, but you're passing on knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's way bigger than just cooking. Now you're molding these students that are going to go out. So you take that. He really kind of impressed that upon me. He's like, take that seriously. Don't go into it. We use the term half-ass. Don't go into it, half-heartedly.
Because it's important. I mean, you're trying to pass on the love that you have for food onto the next generation.
Yeah, and that responsibility to, like you're saying, these are young, impressionable students who are looking up to you. And it's, you have to take it seriously because they don't even know if they're just defining it as, just how chef was doing it and maybe it wasn't being...
But I think, shoot, I'm so frustrated. I'm drawing a blank. I took a brain fart on those other two. I'm gonna have to go home and look at my speech. That was the first and foremost thing that we touched on.
Yeah, and I think that's so important when you're going out there. I was talking about this on another episode. Before I went to culinary school, I went and did informational interviews with different chefs that I thought, hey, I love what you're doing. Like I said, it's not like you're copying them, but they must have followed some type of some path.
Oh, I remembered one.
All right.
Here we go.
The fourth one.
The fourth one was I use the term mise en place.
Yes.
So mise en place, which is you know what it means.
Yes,
it means in French it means everything in place. Mm-hmm. So it's our prep work. But I twisted it and said it's a kitchen term, but it's something that all of you can use because I said it in the fashion of having a plan of action. So write down your plan for 6 months. Where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? And jot down notes on how to get there. Like, what's your plan? Have your mise en place, your recipe for life.
Right.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, because and I really said it's not set in stone. This can be erased. You can be changed.
Yeah, you can.
But at least it's something.
Seasoning.
Yeah, you can't change the seasoning. But at least it's something that you can look at and say, hey, 6 months. I wanted to work with this person.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just remember what the fifth one was. It was chase the dream, not the money.
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, I love your five roles.
So, like
I
for me, I
love
went to culinary school as an older student, so I had to go back. I had my daughter already, so I had to go back into kitchens and start cooking. But if I could go back, if I could put myself into an 18-year-old and go to culinary school at that age, I would have grabbed my knife bag and worked at the best kitchens and not worry about the money. You know, you stage, you work.
Yeah.
You work with the best people, and that knowledge that you gain. I was fortunate that when I graduated, I was working with one of the best on the island in Chef Pang. So I kind of got lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
But
it's so true. Because even when I got out of school, I was lucky enough to work at really good restaurants right away. But even when on my days off, this was San Francisco, so there's so many different chefs to work for. So I was still staging even when I already had decent pastry chef positions, because you just don't get enough from like school. You get your techniques, but the minds really is what is so interesting, and what you learn from the minds of these people, not just the technique. Technique it's something that you can like
the technique is in the book.
It's in the book.
But
it's
you learn how they think, how they operate. You sit back and you just watch these really high caliber chefs and pastry cooks, and it's like a different, those people, like even for us, like they operate at a different level. It's just amazing. Even now, it's like, whoa.
I continue to be amazed by other chefs. It's just, and you never really stop learning. I'm still learning how to cook.
Yeah, you never. That's the joy of cooking. Is like you'll never learn everything. There's so many cuisines and so much. That's what I find that keeps us going. At least for me, it's like I can look at a different cuisine and just look at. I just picked up a new book today, and it's like one of Jose Andres' books. I don't know if you follow him. You follow him?
Oh, yes, he's an amazing chef, and he's got a big heart too. For a very, very successful chef, he's doing a lot of work.
Humanitarian stuff. They're saying that he could win the Nobel Peace Prize with what he's done.
It gives me goosebumps actually. He's an
because he's cooking for all the
World Center Kitchen. So he's in Ukraine right now. Anywhere there. So the book that I'm reading right now is it's kind of a little bit dated, but I just found it and I opened it back up. Was when I think it was Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. And he was the first boots. He always refers to boots on the ground, and he doesn't care. He's operates outside of the boundaries of governments. It's like I'm going to roll in. I'm going to find kitchens that'll have me. I'm going to figure out a way to get food and fresh water to people because that's the essentials. Infrastructure and electricity can come later. But if you don't have food and water, that's But 3 days of fresh water and 7 days of fresh food, and then you're done.
Exactly.
I had the pleasure of meeting him actually when I was
amazing.
I went to CIA in Greystone, and we had hosted our school hosted an event because there was what was this 2015 or so. I mean, the Spanish cuisine is huge. Ferran Adria was our guest speaker.
That's when Spain was the golden child
at the time.
World.
It was almost taking over France. Forget France at the time. Everyone was going to Spain, and he was actually the MC of that whole show because he was one that actually spoke English really well, because by that time I think he was living already in Washington D.C. and opened a couple of restaurants there. But a lot of the Spanish chefs were coming straight from Spain, and
they didn't speak English at all. I think Ferran didn't speak English at all.
No, he didn't. But I mean, he was a guest speaker.
What's Ferran's brother's name?
He was a pastry chef.
He's a pastry chef, and he is amazing.
Ferran and
I want to say it's like George or
No. I will text it to you when I remember it, but
What year
Same.
was Spain really big? I used to live there, so I wonder if I was there. I would have been able to before.
It started with Ferran Adria and El Bulli. So and the molecular gastronomy movement.
Gotcha.
So that was kind of like
Gotcha.
2004, 5 ish.
Yeah.
And that's when that book molecular. What's the big four?
Are you talking about his book or the
Not
one before?
Ferran's book, but the big 3 edition.
Wow.
Or 4. So it's the book that sold for like $400. The
Yeah.
molecular gastronomy book.
But there's quite a few since then. But Ferran Adria had his own that just went.
Yeah.
Frank actually worked at El Bulli for for a few months. Literally, as soon as we got married, he's like, I don't know if I can leave you. I was like, yeah, you do. You go away.
Yeah, most definitely.
You're like, get in
It's
there.
a once in a lifetime opportunity. That's
Yeah.
where if anybody.
Because we knew he was going to hang his stoke at some point. So it's like, yep, go work there. So we met him when he was there. I actually have a picture of Ferran.
Nice.
You know, like, of course, starstruck. I
Of
was able
course.
to say anything. But yeah, now it's going to bug me too to remember his brother's name. But the chocolatiers in Spain at the time were just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like they took everything. They took the thunder from
Yeah.
France and Paris and
Free.
just ran with it. Like
Yeah.
they
It
were
was
just doing so much different things.
very unique. And then now I feel like we're going back into a more old school, closer to how we used to make food, where you can actually recognize the ingredients. And I've done
I just had that
against-
conversation with a chef friend. I was like, somebody went to like a big tasting menu. It was like $200. I'm like, I'm over that. Like my days of tasting menus are. If somebody's gonna pay for me, I guess I'll go. But really, it's not something I search out anymore. I've been there, done that. That was back in. I think I did French Laundry back in 2003 when Thomas was huge, and that was the place to go.
Yeah.
And and Chicago with Grant Laquette's.
Sure.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and I enjoy that kind of food, but yeah, you're right. Now, lately, I'm more excited when I can forage and make food with
I want
that.
food
Like,
with
I'm
soul.
So excited.
I want food that speaks to me.
Yeah.
Like I want the stuff that grandmas cook.
Exactly, and when I
And,
meet the people who grew them, it's so
And I want
exciting
to
me.
sit there. I want to sit there with the grandmas, and I want to learn how to cook that so I can pass that on, and I want to capture that style of cooking.
Yeah.
Like that's my jam now. It's
I mean, that's how you connect with our community to begin with, because they recognize what you do, and you're bringing back a lot of that old culture.
Yeah, well, I think we're losing it.
Modernized
I think
ways.
we had this whole fancy food movement, and then sadly, I think now we're moving into a very processed stage where it's like, we see it here on island, and we see all these big. I don't want to be the guy to say names, but I mean, you look in Central Maui and all those big chains that are
Oh
rolling
my god,
in.
I can't believe people are actually excited about that. I was just like, but I
Oh
don't
God, yeah.
We're not going to talk
True.
about that because this is a positive,
Yeah.
joyful,
So I mean,
fun
I
podcast.
wish them all the best, and it adds, I guess, something to our community. But I mean, really, we need more. For me, I would love to see local government step up and provide cheaper places for people to rent and cook traditional foods.
Yeah.
Whether it be a Japanese okazuya or a local Hawaiian food place. We don't have any place that sells Hawaiian food. That's sad.
Exactly.
I mean, you have some.
Yeah.
Very limited.
Little.
But back in the day, we had I don't know if you guys ever remember where Walgreens is in Kahului.
Yeah.
And right next to Walgreens is like that automotive shop. That used to be a restaurant. There was a restaurant there called Aloha Restaurant back in the
what is
70s.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was where Walgreens is used to be Pizza Hut, old school Pizza Hut with the red roof.
Wow.
And right next to Pizza Hut, where that automotive place is, was a restaurant and a bar called Aloha Restaurant, and that was the go-to place for family luau's, and they had actually a pits in the back where they did their kalua pig in the back, and you could get tripe stew and Portuguese bean soup and luau's, and it was everybody that had graduation parties, or wedding receptions. It was a huge open cavern like restaurant. Like I mean, it's just bench tables everywhere, mixed matched, and we don't see that. We've lost so much of our local.
Yeah. Gotcha.
It's hard to find local restaurants like
It's so
mom and
true.
pops.
I mean, I love Poi by the Pound, but like you said, there's very, very few now.
Yeah.
But, anything else, Chef? Because I know you're really, really busy. But any message or any questions I was supposed to ask that I might have missed? Because I love the 5.
Support local.
Yeah, support local. Yes.
Get out and eat at your small mom and pop restaurants. Support your local. You know, even more so now with it's crazy. Food costs are going up, and
It's crazy.
I understand. You know, we try to keep our food costs down, and we try our best. It's unavoidable that some things are going to go up, but more so than ever, if you can support your small local businesses, because before you know it, you're going to wake up one day and they're not going to be there, and you're going to be, I hate these posts, going back to that post that we did that had 700 comments. It's all fun, but look at all the places that are gone. It's fun now to recollect,
Sure.
but if you really look at it, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Because that's so many great places that are no longer with us, and we hate to add more. We don't want to add more to the list.
Yes, absolutely. I just announced that I'm raising my prices. First time I'm doing it since before the pandemic, and it made me feel so bad because
eat more donuts.
Right, eat more donuts, you guys. It's one of the messages of this podcast.
Immediately.
Eat more donuts. Just to let you know, her donuts are fat-free,
yes,
calorie-free.
Saturdays.
They are gluten-free and free of everything.
That's why it's cheap, like 0.
Yeah.
0 calories.
Yeah, there's 0 calories. Yeah.
On Saturdays, you can eat donuts because there's 0 calories.
Yeah, only on Saturdays.
Only on Saturdays. Thank you so much, Chef, for
You're welcome. Thanks
hanging
for
out
having
with
us.
us. Oh my God, I'm really, really honored that you're here. I was really, really
Feels
excited.
like we could chat for another hour or two.
I know, we
All
could
right,
have.
we
We
keep
totally
going.
have. I mean,
Keep going.
it's so easy.
But this is fantastic.
I want to thank everybody, of course, for sticking around until the end of the show. If you're watching YouTube, we'll be back next week. And I should be back after midnight to do my karaoke after midnight while I finish the rest of the bottle. If Chef and I don't drink it off hours, you will see. But yeah, again, thank you guys. We'll be back next week. And aloha to you.
Aloha.
Aloha.